Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our New York Islanders franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, we did suffer more losses than we did in the first part of the season. However, as you can see on the bottom below my face, I'll just remove my face for a second so you can see the whole thing. We've improved in a lot of areas. We actually still are a good offensive team. We are a very good defensive team. Our power play is now top 10 in the league, and our penalty kill has jumped up all the way to being a top 6 in the league. So we're pretty much good in every single category, which is amazing considering this team hasn't really changed at all since last season, other than the addition of like USO Parson in the bottom 6 and then like guys like William Dufour making the club. Like our team looks really strong on paper, and I think we could get out of the first round this year if we get to the playoffs, but obviously it's going to take a lot of work. Hopefully we don't run into any hot teams, because obviously that would be very tough for us. But it's been a really good season for the goaltending. Like Varlamov's rocking a 930 as the backup in his last year of his contract. I don't know if he's going to retire this offseason, because I think I have seen him play until he's 40 before. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up signing with somebody else in the offseason. And then we have Sorokin on a 9-10, so our goaltending has been fantastic. And then we're getting good offense from our top guys, like Bjorkstrand's on 27 goals. You could see Bo Horvat's already on 29 goals. Matthew Barzal's on 51 assists already. Like, everything has been working out really nicely. Like, Frondell's having a really good second season. We have Brock Nelson, who's having a good year. Frank Vetrano's having an okay year for the most part. Same with Anthony Duclair. Cizikas has been not too bad, great defensively. Same with Holmstrom. Like, I've been really impressed with pretty much everybody on this roster for the most part. So, very excited to see what ends up happening in the second half. We were looking at some potential trades to make, but I think the trades I was looking at in last episode, so the Jason Dickinson deal, is too much value to give up for a guy like that when we already have a strong enough roster. Like, basically, we would have been bringing Jason Dickinson for this third line center spot, so we would have been even stronger down the middle. But I don't think it's something that's warranted giving up an elite goalie prospect in a first-round pick. So we are probably going to just stay with our roster going into the playoffs for the most part, unless there's anything more interesting at the actual trade deadline itself. So I would definitely will hop into the trade deadline still and take a look and see what's out there. But I think for the most part, I might just honestly keep the team the same. But anyways, before we get into all that, let's get in your guys' comments and see what you guys have to say about last episode. And then we will get into the year 3 trade deadline. So the first comment is from Siren Taku. It says the team is still in a decent enough position to where any reasonable trade wouldn't be much of an upgrade. If Duclair stays on the third line forward, maybe think about moving out Vetrano in the offseason, as I don't think his production has been as consistent, at least not for his position in the lineup. I could see Frondell developing into a Brandon Hagel type player, good scoring touch with strong defensive upside. And yeah, Frondell's really kind of taking it into his own to develop into a really good player so far for us. Like, I'm thinking he's going to be close to being like probably the first line left winger next season. Probably moving like Bjorkstrand maybe to the second line. Depends on chemistry and all that. But you can see so far he's got the 44 points in 62 games. He's got some power play points. He's got some shorthanded points. Like, he literally is one of those type of players that could play in every single situation. So he is developing quite nicely. And obviously once his ELC comes to an end, I'm definitely going to lock him up if I can on like an 8-year deal, because I think he definitely deserves to be here for a long time while we actually go back into that rebuild state and all that, because like he could definitely be a future captain once we go into those rebuilding years with this team, which is still to come probably within the next few seasons, I would assume. But he was saying about potentially moving out Frank Vetrano in the off season if we want to, which I think that actually could be an option. Duclair definitely, I think, has been the most consistent player out of the two of those guys. Like, if we take a look at them, if we go first, let's go with Duclair first. Let's take a look at his points and stuff like that over the last few games here. If we go game logs, technically Duclair has not been doing too hot as of late. He's got the 4 points in the last, like, looks like, let's see, 3, 6, 7 games. If we go to split stats, let's actually take a look at each month individually on these guys. So Duclair started off with 3 assists in 8 games, not a great start. Had a good November though with 12 points through 13 games, 7 points in 11 games in December, 12 points in 15 games in January. That's really good. 4 goals in 10 games in February. So far in March, he only has the 1 assist through 2 games. So that's his split stats. Now, if we go over to somebody like Vetrano, how consistent has Frank Vetrano been? Probably not good, right? Let's go to game logs here. He only has 3 assists over those last 7 games, so he's doing worse in the last 7 games. If we look at the split stats here and go down to the bottom of this here, October he had 4 assists in 8 games, not bad. He had a really good November as well, 11 points in 13 games, had a good December, 10 points in 14 games, 9 points in January, that's also not too bad. But then he fell off a little bit in February, and so far in March he has the 1 assist. So he had 3 good months in a row, I would say. And then obviously, like, yeah, February not so much. He was -7 as well during that month, so a bit of a tough month recently for Frank Vatrano. And maybe that's why we lost a good chunk of games, is because Frank Vatrano wasn't up to snuff. But yeah, that definitely could be something we'll end up looking into doing, is moving out him. He is a year older, also didn't declare in the offseason, so technically it wouldn't be a bad idea to move him. He's also easier to move because he doesn't have a clause on his contract, so we might end up looking into moving him potentially, and in that way we could potentially find somebody else to replace him in that top 6 kind of role. So that might be something we obviously do, but it won't come until like the draft or something like that. The next comment is from Big T, who says, I think you should get Jason Dickinson. So he's thinking we should do the Jason Dickinson deal. I just think it's too much value to give up for us, because our first round pick is probably going to be like a top 6 forward, could be a low elite player even if it's a draft class like that. But giving up ourselves our elite goalie prospect is something that I'm a little bit worried on, and I don't think I really want to do that, because this guy's literally going to be cracking our AHL team next season. Because currently Solovyov is there. Obviously Solovyov's untouchable, but Khudobin, you can see 68 at 20, medium elite potential. He should be an AHL goalie next season, behind maybe Lennox or Skarek, one of the two. Probably I'd go with Lennox just because Skarek's a pending UFA. So if it was Lennox and Khudobin, like literally Khudobin could be on our NHL roster within a few seasons and taking up that backup role that we're going to be needing once Varlamov has retired or left his team, basically. So I think holding on to Khudobin makes a lot of sense. As good as Jason Dickinson would be for that third line center, we're already pretty strong down the middle, and it's not really that huge of an upgrade, I would say, even though he has been a very good offensive player with the Chicago Blackhawks as of right now. The next comment is from a ball of beer, says you needed to go after Ryan Hartman. You have a star forward, and I don't really know what you mean by that. I understand that you said to go for Ryan Hartman, but I don't know what you mean by you have a star forward. Ryan Hartman would be a good addition as well, kind of for that third line center spot, but he is, I believe, wasn't he listed as like a second line forward? But I don't really think he's really what we kind of need on this roster fully. Like, he is another kind of good third line kind of guy, but if we went over here, like, he can play center, I believe, right? Yeah, he can, but he doesn't have huge face-off upgrades. He's also been pretty solid offensively. Not going to say that he hasn't been good in Minnesota, but I don't really think it's going to do much more different than our current roster is. Looks like he's actually pretty bad on face-offs when he does take them, at least this season so far. But he is a good player. He is a pending free agent, so maybe we'll be able to bring him in the offseason or something like that. If we get rid of Vatrano, we could bring in Hartman to basically replace him in the offseason if Hartman does go to the free agent pool. And the last and final comment is from Nick Bucker, Barons OC, who says, I say if you can't get a star, why trade? And that's true, pretty much. Like, if we can't get ourselves a really good player to basically give ourselves even a better chance, why even make it trade? Also, the fact that our penalty kill got much better, I don't feel like we need to upgrade our penalty kill like we were thinking last season. Considering it's been good this year, might as well just keep it the same. Considering everything's like pretty much top 10 in the league except for our goals for, I think it's good just to pretty much stay pat and see what ends up happening in the playoffs again, even though it's pretty much the exact same roster as was last season. So there is that. I think we're ready to get into the trade deadline. So let's advance a day and get into this deadline. We do actually have a game on the deadline. We'll take a look and see if there's anything out there that screams interesting to us, but I think we are probably not going to make a single deal again at this deadline. So let's just take a look and see what there is. Lawson Crouse, they say we have interest in Crouse, which we don't. DeBrincat on the block is a pretty good player to have on the trading block, but not really what I need, I don't think. He would be at a huge upgrade from like Frank Vatrano on that top 6, but he'd also cost us quite a bit, so that's where I wouldn't bring somebody like him in. Vince Dunn's good, but we don't need defenders, don't need Bobrovsky. Thomas Chabot, don't need him. Joel Eriksson Ek, like, most of these guys we already have type of players that could play in those positions, as there's already been a trade. Washington, I can't see now because I've earned some rewards. God damn these rewards. They blocked off that thing, so I couldn't see even who got dealt. I think I saw Marco Scandella in that deal, but I honestly don't know. I don't know why that thing keeps popping up about rewards, but like a lot of these additions we could even bring in free agency. Like the return that they want for a lot of these guys is first round draft picks, which I'm not really wanting to give up our first rounder. I mean, I could give up our first rounder, but some of them would want our good prospects with them. So it's like, I don't really know if it makes much sense for us. As LA has traded Fogamo and Ben Hutton to New Jersey for Haminaho and is that Connor Brown? I don't even know. Some other Brown, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be useful for us to make a trade here. Like, I've been really impressed with the way a lot of guys have simulated on this roster. And, like, we have a way better record. Like, we're definitely clinched a playoff spot at this stage. Like, we have a lot of guys that could take faceoffs too, which is good. So, like, if I needed to move, like, say, Matt Barzal to being a center, Horvat to being a second line center instead, I could do that. But obviously, I'm not going to do that. As Provorov and Roslovic go back to the Jets for Cole Perfetti, a second, and Thomas Milic. Holy crap, that's a pretty big trade. Wow, Cole Perfetti getting dealt to the Blue Jackets. Okay. Yeah, I don't really think we need much. Like, we could even call up guys from the system if we really get into trouble. Gadjevich is down there. We also still have, like, Pospisil down there, Maggio. Like, I think we're in a good spot that we don't really need to upgrade anything, so just got to hope that the teams that we might play in the playoffs aren't making any huge trades. As Bemstrom and Grizzly get dealt from Pittsburgh with John Ludwig to Buffalo for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, geez, I can barely talk, on his way to Pittsburgh. So UPL is now a Penguin. So there is some pretty big trades happening this year, but yeah, we're not going to make any of our own. Let's take a look at what trades went down on deadline day, but it seems like a pretty big deadline for some big moves. At least like that Perfetti one was one that I wasn't expecting. Vancouver. Should I claim him back? And I'm joking. I don't know if I would. Because Braden Pahal, if you guys remember, we literally added him to a trade so that way we could get ourselves, who was it? The elite, yeah, it was the elite goalie, right? I think it was the elite goalie. We basically moved up a couple spots. We got rid of Pahal in that deal, and now he's on waivers with 2 years left on his contract. It would be funny to claim him back, but I'm not going to do it. He hasn't even played... Wait, yeah, he has played with us, right? I thought he played with us. Wait, no, maybe we had him scratched, but he never played a single game with us. Was that the case? Did I never play him in a single game? I swear I've had Pahal. I am confused now. No, I think we definitely did have him, but he just didn't play a single game with our lineup or something like that. But it's kind of funny that he's on waivers. All right, so what trades went down at the deadline? Nothing was listed as a blockbuster, but some of those trades to me screamed like they were pretty big. So let's see what we got in terms of deadline deals. Jack Johnson on his way back to Colorado again from Montreal. Interesting. Let's see. P.S. Suter to San Jose. Okay. Ian Cole to Boston. What else we got here? Ryan Suter to New Jersey Devils. Interesting. Makes me think of when him and Zach Parise signed in Minnesota back in the day. The Rangers. Tyler Tucker from Nashville. Okay. P.O. Joseph from St. Louis to Dallas for some prospects. Connor Garland on his way to Pittsburgh. So Vegas was able to offload that 6-year deal and move him to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Pittsburgh's going for it still. Nick Hague on his way to Philadelphia for a second-round pick. That's a pretty good deal for Nick Hague, in my opinion. St. Louis getting the prospect in the second. Anders Lee on his way to New Jersey. Oh, boy. So, Anders Lee, our former captain of the Islanders, is on his way to a kind of a rival, I would say. Not fully as much as the Rangers, obviously, but he is very close to us, and he's back in our division again. So, if New Jersey has a strong push and makes the playoffs, there is a chance we might have to face off against Anders Lee. Jesse Ylonen on his way, or Ullinen, I should say, on his way to Carolina. Second round pick going to Utah. Faravari on his way to Tampa. Okay, it's not a bad one. Freddie Gaudreau, Joel Kiviranta, and Noel Echari on his way to the Rangers. Okay, John Marino on to Vancouver with Julian Gauthier, one of our former guys. Tyler Bertuzzi going to Nashville from Carolina. Carolina gets Dante Fabro, Alexander Carrier, and 2 others. There's the Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen one that I was mentioning about. And then there's the Cole Perfetti one as well. That's Cole Perfetti one's pretty crazy. I was not expecting Perfetti to be moved already. And then Provorov and Roslovic going the other way. So Winnipeg's going for it. And then Columbus gets a bit younger, which is pretty nice. And there's the other trade we saw, the Cole Brown one. It wasn't Connor Brown. I wasn't sure which Brown that was. And then Anthony Beauvillier getting dealt back to Chicago. Scandella was the trade that got blown up because I didn't see it because of the rewards. But I would say a pretty solid deadline. Nothing crazy in trades other than the Perfetti deal and I'd say the UPL deal. I think those ones were definitely the biggest of the bunch. But there is the trade deadline for 2027. Let's continue to simulate the rest of the regular season and clinch our playoff spot, which we should be doing relatively soon because we are currently like quite a bit up on the wildcard spot. So I think we'll definitely clinch maybe this month already. So let's go a couple weeks at a time. So let's go to the 14th, see how we do to start off this new era, I should say. Carolina, we win 4-2. Colorado, we lose 5-2. We do beat St. Louis 4-3, and Philadelphia for the first half of the month, 6-4 win. We're on 40 wins already. We have not clinched a playoff spot yet, but I think we're probably getting pretty close, as the Leafs have already clinched with 51 wins on the season. Jesus. Okay, so that's going to be definitely a tough task if we run into Toronto in the playoffs, because 51 wins in 67 games. They're already on 104 points. The Oilers are also on 100 points. We're literally on 87, and we're having a fantastic year. So those two teams are definitely the scary threats right now. Like, if we lose in an early round, I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto or Edmonton face each other in the Cup Finals. Let's go another few weeks and see what we do in this few games of action. We got 4 games this week. We lose to Philadelphia there in a shootout. That's okay. It's still a point. We lose to Detroit in regulation. This one we win 2-1. Washington we beat 5-0. Washington again we lose in overtime, still a point. Montreal we win 4-2. And Carolina, as Isaiah George has been injured in the minors, we'll go replace player on that. Doesn't matter too much. Carolina is going to be a 6-5 overtime loss, so we're still losing in the extra frame quite a bit. We're literally 43, 20, and 10, so we have points in 53 of 73, which is pretty damn good. And we still have not clinched a playoff spot, which is kind of surprising. We are 13 points up on the wild card spot in our division, and in the wild card spot in the Atlantic has less points, so we should be very close to clinching here. Like, probably like 1 or 2 more wins, my guess, and we have a playoff spot guaranteed. So let's see if we could clinch it here in these next few games. Tampa, we win 4-1, and that did clinch us a playoff spot. I thought it was going to be soon. Let's go, and oh no, okay, that's not good, but it's not too long term. He'll be back for the playoffs. Bo Horvat is going to take a little bit of a break. He will be out till April the 5th with an upper body injury. At least he'll be healthy for the playoffs, because if he was out long term, that would be a substantial blow going into the postseason, and then I would be like, damn, maybe we should have brought Jason Dickinson in. I think it was, who was it that was scratched? It was Travis Mitchell, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it was Travis Mitchell, because he was getting thrown in on a forward spot before, so I think it was him. Let's continue with Zoom here. Seattle, we lose in overtime, still a point. We have that playoff spot clinch, which is good, but literally, I don't even know how we've only lost 20 in regulation. Like, we're losing a lot of extra frame games, but we literally have points in 55 of 75 now. So we're at least getting points, and we're not losing too much in regulation, which is good. So let's go through another 3 games. We don't have Bo Horvat for these 2 games, so he will not make his return to Vancouver. As we shut out Edmonton 3-0. We lose to Vancouver 6-3. And Horvat will be back for this game against the tough Toronto Maple Leafs. So hopefully he can do some good against them. But yeah, if we run into Toronto in the playoffs, I feel like that's going to be quite a tough task for our team. But hopefully we can beat them, as we just lost to them in the regular season. We're now 45, 22, and 11. We got 4 more games to go. 2 of them against Boston. Let's just get through the rest of this and see how we finish off this season. LA is a win, 4-2. Boston, in Boston that is going to be another win, 5-1. Nice. Columbus, shootout win, and a win again over Boston. We finished the season off 49, 22, and 11. That's really good. We nearly hit 50 wins. We had points in 60 of 82 games. So very impressed with the team this season, for sure. Big upgrade from last year. All right, so now that that is done, let's take a look at our team stats here, because it should still show it, which it is not. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go in and look on our own. Actually, not all teams are done simulating yet, so let's advance another day. So that way we can see every team being done, which it looks like they all are now. Perfect. but unfortunately the team stats went away, so I'm going to have to determine where we were on the power play by myself. So in terms of the entire league, despite us having almost a 50-win season, we were the 5th best team in the NHL. So Colorado finished above us, same with Florida, Edmonton, and Toronto. We were the 3rd best team in the Eastern Conference, the best in our division. Damn, yeah, the top few teams, these 4 teams are pretty scary. I could easily see one of them winning the Stanley Cup if we don't. In terms of goals for per game on average, we are outside of the top 10 in goals for, so our offense definitely dropped off still. So we are number 10, 11, 12, 13th in goals for. It's not bad. Obviously, it could be better, but we'll be better once we get into the playoffs. We must be the best goals against team, though, right? Yep, we were the number 1 defensive team in the league, tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I feel like they're going to give the Leafs the Jennings, though, just because of the fact that they finished 1st place in the league and they had more wins. Probably that's how it's going to be, but we were tied for the best defensive team, so that's really, really good to see. So average offense and very good defense. Power play percentage, not the best on the power play. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13th on the power play. So kind of mid-table on the power play and in goals for. So our offense isn't the best, but it's not the worst. Penalty kill was a top 10 penalty kill in the league. Yep, top 10 penalty kill, 5th in the league. So good defense, average offense. But that's okay. That's all we kind of need. We also had 12 short-handed goals, which was almost one of the most in the league. The Blues and the Bruins had more, with 14 each. 26, 10, and 5 on home ice, and 23, 12, and 6 on the road. 6, 2, and 2 going into the playoffs, all right. Let's see these player stats now. Okay, so Barzal was only a point per game, so we had some guys that looked like they were going to be much above point per game. But our offense definitely slowed down, I think, in a bit in the second half, but we did win a lot of games still, so I'm okay with that for the most part. Let's see what we got here in points. So Barzal on the 82 points in 82 games. He was great for us this season. 16 goals only, but 66 assists, so he was doing his part in terms of setting people up. Brock Nelson was fantastic at 35 years old. 33 goals and 81 points. Is that a career high for him? I feel like it probably is. Yes. So Brock Nelson with the best year of his career and maybe one of his last years of his career. That's kind of crazy. 3 short-handed goals and 6 short-handed points. So he was very good on the penalty kill. So good stuff from Brock. He is still signed for 1 more year here. I don't know necessarily if he's going to retire this offseason or what, but we'll come to it when we get to that point. Bo Horvat only played the 80 games because obviously he missed 2 due to injury. 78 points this year. Good another year for Bo Horvat. Maybe he can win a Selke, but depends on his face-offs and all that. Cizikas, 28 points. Pretty solid. Plus 15. David Gustafsson was good. 26 points. Plus 7. Really like that considering he was a waiver claim. Juuso Parssinen, 24 points with us. Plus 7. That's exactly kind of what I want from Parssinen. And he also did have, I think, probably good takeaway numbers. So he definitely helped us out defensively. So shout out to Parssinen. Left wing side of things, Frundell on 58 points. He definitely slowed down a bit in the second half of the season, but almost a 60-point season, which is nice. Didn't really pick up a lot of power play points, which is kind of weird, but had 5 short-handed points, which is nice. And, of course, he had the good takeaway ratio. So good year for Anton Frundell. Hopefully he continues that into the playoffs. He's now up to an 87. So shout out to him. Duclair on 51 points. That's not too bad. Only 18 goals, which is a little bit low. Considering last year he had 26. But the point totals are pretty similar to last year. He had a better plus minus. So not too impressed really, but not too mad either. I'd say that's an okay amount of points for him. Right wing side of things, Bjorkstrand on 74 points and 35 goals. His goal scoring definitely fell off after the trade deadline, but still, that's a really good season from Bjorkstrand. He's been a really good addition since we brought him in. Back-to-back 70-point seasons. So we got to definitely keep this guy probably either on a first or second line because he seems to work really well with Barzal and all that. Frank Vetrano actually was better than Duclair. That's interesting. So Vetrano had a better second half, I guess. So that's where the question comes into effect is who would get moved out? Because you guys were saying maybe about moving Vetrano, but Vetrano was technically the better. Like, I don't know if it's just because he was in the top 6 role, but he definitely had a really good second half. 56 points. And if we go to like the split stats, In March, he had 12 points in 15 games, and he had 6 points in 7 games in April. So he definitely did a lot better in those later months, probably, than what Duclair did, I would assume. If we go to split stats as well here. Let's see. 8 points in 15 games, only 1 goal, and then he had 5 assists in 7 games in April. So he just started scoring way less and becoming more of a playmaker, which is interesting. Okay. Aside from, though, Vetrano, Simon Holmstrom had 42 points this year. That's a big year for Simon Holmstrom, as he's starting to become a pretty solid player in both ends of the ice. Dufour on 12 points and a plus 10. That's pretty good for his rookie season. Good defensive play as well. And Wallstrom only played the 3 games. Defensively, Dobson on 58 points and a plus 16. That's a good year for Noah. 11 goals. He did start off the season with no goals in the first 21, so I'll take it. Pollock on 32 points. Romanov on 21. Pellick on 14. Bolduc on 12. Mayfield on 10. He was a plus 21, so we got some really good defensive stats. And then Stetcher only played the 7 games with 4 points. And then from a goalie perspective, Sorokin rocked a 9.12 and Varlamov dropped to a 9.19, but both of them very good numbers this season. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we're going to start Sorokin in the playoffs, but Varlamov could come into some playoff games if he wants to, and if Sorokin's not doing good. In terms of the entire league, let's see who led the league in points. I'm guessing like Nathan McKinnon or Austin Matthews, somebody like that. Connor McDavid, okay, 129 points for him. Matthews on 126. Then you get a bit of a drop-off with Hyman, McKinnon, Rantanen, those heavy guys. All right. Most goals this season is going to be Austin Matthews with 68. Rantanen was second with 67, so only 2 60-goal scorers. We had a couple 50-goal scorers on top of that as well. Nathan McKinnon didn't even hit 50, but he had over 110 points, so that's still good. In terms of defensemen, the best defenseman for points was Adam Fox with 98 points this year. So big year from Adam Fox. Cale Makar also had 93 points. So defense was crazy this season. All right. A lot of good plus minuses on those defensive things too. And Noah Dobson was a top 10 defenseman, but he had 40 less points than the guy that won the Norris. So I feel like it's going to be pretty tough for Dobson to actually win a Norris trophy with the amount of skill level on defense in this series. Terms of goalies, the most wins was Stuart Skinner with 48. Also, Joseph Woll had 48. Most shutouts this season was Skinner as well with 9 shutouts. Damn, that's a lot. Best save percentage by a starter was Shesterkin in Chicago with a 920. So yeah, Chicago probably made the playoffs, so that's probably good that we didn't make a trade for Dickinson, because it's kind of unrealistic in that sense. Shesterkin also had the best goals against average with a 2.61. Any goalie goals this season? No goalie goals this season. Most assists by a goaltender is going to be Askarov with 5. Okay. Best rookie this season is going to be DeAndre Harris of the Washington Capitals, the franchise guy that went second overall, 54 points in his first season. He's a sniper, but he had more assists than goals, which is interesting. Brandseg, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. Anyways, he goes second. Svechkov was third in rookie points. Sikora, etc. Okay. So there is all that. I do want to briefly go to our AHL team as well, because I do want to see how Pratt's season is so far with Bridgeport. I believe they have a couple more games left this season, so let's go to Bridgeport here. Pratt's on 48 points. Pretty damn solid. Still only a 70 overall, so hopefully you get some growth when we get to the off-season portion, but looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. So I don't know if Bridgeport's in the playoffs. Probably not, considering the plus-minus on this team is atrocious. But the offense was pretty damn good from Pratt, who would actually... He's second in points on the team, only behind Maggio. So those two guys did really well this season. All right. Now the question is, who are we going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs? Is it a team we could beat? Is it a team that's going to be tough? Because obviously the Atlantic Division was strong last year. This year, the Canadians who knocked us out of the playoffs were dead last with 80 points. Damn, okay. So we are not going to be playing Montreal again, which is good. But I think we play probably the Hurricanes likely. Let's see. Am I right? No, Detroit. Okay, Detroit in the first round. So we do play an Atlantic Division team in the Red Wings. They are 7-1-2 in their last 10 games going into the playoffs. And then there is the comparison underneath, if you could see here on the right-hand side. They were the 6th best offensive team to our 12th. We were the best defensive team. They were the 20th best defensive team, so they weren't very good defensively. Their power play was also pretty bad compared to ours, and their penalty kill was okay, but it wasn't as good as ours. So they're technically, right now at least, it looks like a better offensive team 5-on-5, and that's the main difference with our rosters. Interesting. There's the playoff matchups if you wanted to take a look at that. It's not going to read it out, but that's that. Let's take a look at what Detroit is looking like in terms of their lineup. Obviously, we know they have DeBrincat because he was on the block at the trade deadline, but obviously we didn't make a trade for him. Who is also on the roster here? Okay, similar to what their real-life lines are like here, I guess. So DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond. Very good top line, of course. We got to shut that down. Not as strong as the Caulfield line we were playing last year, but this is still definitely a tough task. Second line, Michael Rasmussen is an 86 overall. I don't know how he's up to an 86, but I'm not going to question it. Then there's also Marco Kasper, who's gotten a lot of growth. He's up to an 87 overall, so really good second line so far. And Vlad Tarasenko. Yeah, it's a pretty good top six. Third line has Michael Brandseg. I don't even know still how to pronounce this guy's last name, but I'm not even going to try. Brandseg anyways. You also have Andrew Kopp, who we were looking into potentially bringing in as a third line center, and Joe Veleno. So that's a very solid top nine. And a fourth line in Nate Danielson, Jonathan Berggren. Patrick Kane is playing on the fourth line. Damn. Yeah, this is a good team, especially on the offense. I could see why they scored a lot. But Patrick Kane being a fourth liner, having 74 points. Obviously, a lot of them on the power play. That's actually kind of insane. I'm surprised his plus-minus wasn't a huge issue, because usually Patrick Kane's a terrible defensive player. And he technically looks like one too, because his defensive awareness isn't super good. So maybe we could blow up that fourth line because it's too offensive. Defensively, they have Edvinsson and Seider, Larson in Willinger. So they brought in Adam Larson. That's nice. And then Eric Gustafsson and Justin Holl. That defensive core is pretty strong. It's pretty strong. Yeah, this team is definitely going to be tougher than they look. And in terms of goaltender, they have Philip Gustafsson, who they brought in, I guess, in free agency from Minnesota. He only played 5 games last season, and then they threw him down to the AHL. That's weird. I don't know why they did that. Huh. And then, yeah, he's been in Detroit this entire season, rocked in 900. Not the best goaltending stats, but he's still good. And Charlie Lindgren is the backup with his awesome mustache, apparently. How good was he? And 909, pretty solid. So there is their goaltending combination. They do have some solid goaltending. They have solid defense. Like, they're a pretty well built up team. And in depth, they have Olli Maatta, who actually just recently got traded to Utah, and Elmer Soderblom as a healthy scratch. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a tough task. It's definitely not as, I would say not, I don't know. It's like as hard as Montreal, but not as hard. Because Montreal had a better top line, I would say, last year when we played them. Their bottom 9, though, I feel like in Detroit is stronger than it was in Montreal. And then from a defensive standpoint, maybe pretty close. Goaltending, obviously, is pretty close, I would say. Yeah, I think this is going to be definitely a good matchup. It could be definitely a series that goes to 7 games again, my guess. But one thing I do want to take a look at before I end this episode is I do want to take a look at how good we did against them during the regular season. Not that it's going to matter much. But I do want to see what our season record was against them. So when did we play Detroit here? Let's see. Detroit. Must have been late in the season, I guess, that we played them, huh? Because I have not seen a Detroit game so far. There's one we won 4-1. That's nice. Okay, so there's one win. We lost this one, so we were 1-1, and we won this one 2-1. Looks like a lot of defensive games against them. So 2-1 against them in 3 games. And that's all the games I think we had against them was just 3 games. Actually, I could take a look, I guess, on the player cards here too. If I go to like one of our players and just look at versus certain opponents, I can see how good each of these guys did technically against Detroit. I'm not going to do every single player, but if we look at somebody like, let's just go to our goaltending, because obviously the goaltending looked like it was good against them. If I go here and go split stats, and I go against Detroit, Sorokin played 2 of the 3 games. He was 1-1 with a .938 save percentage and a 2.02 goals against. So he was pretty damn good against them. And then if we go to Varlamov's stats against them, how good did he do in his one game that he played against them? Because he definitely played in one of them since we only had 3 games, right? Let's see, Detroit. Yeah, he had a 968 in that one game. So both goaltenders we had were actually good against Detroit in the regular season, so that could help us. But obviously Detroit was pretty good, I think, against us too in that sense. Like, if we go to their goalie stats against us, here's what they were by comparison. This will make an interesting little thing to do just for extra stats and all that. I'm glad I could do this now at least. So Philip Gustafsson started all 3 games against us. He did rock a 926 save percentage and a 2.35, so he was solid too. But he had a losing record because his team didn't score a lot against us. And we didn't score a lot against them either. So might be a bit more of a defensively minded series based on that. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our New York Islanders franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the first round of the playoffs against potentially a cheese team because the record suggests they're a cheese, but I feel like they're a lot better than that. They were 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. It's going to be a tough task, I think, against Detroit. Obviously, last year we went to 7 games with Montreal, so I think this could be another series that's pretty similar, or maybe we'll just all of a sudden click a lot more because we have a much better penalty kill than we did last year. So if that continues into the playoffs, maybe we could do a lot better than going to Game 7 in the first round. So let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.